You have chosen to hear a story shaped by water and silence. The river that holds this tale does not behave like the rivers you recognize. It listens instead of flows. It remembers instead of forgetting. It keeps its secrets with a patience that belongs only to places untouched by time. The people of Murfreesboro believed their town rested safely beside a familiar waterway. They believed the land would reveal anything that moved upon it. They believed they understood what lived beyond their own windows. They were mistaken. The creature that rose from the trees during the summer of 1973 did not come as a visitor. It came as a reminder that the land does not answer to those who build their homes upon it. It came because something ancient stirred beneath the current. As you begin this tale, remember that the river listens. It does not speak often, but when it chooses to, its voice changes everything. Now, follow me. The river is ready to show what it is. The big, muddy river wound its way through southern Illinois with a slow and deliberate path. Its waters carried silt and stories from miles beyond the sight of the people who lived beside it. The surrounding land was thick with layered shadows. Tall sycamores leaned across the water and created a canopy that dimmed the sunlight, even during late afternoon. The air always felt heavy near the river, as if the land exhaled memories rather than wind. Generations had settled along its banks, believing the river belonged to them simply because they stood near it. They built parks, walking trails, neighborhoods, and places for families to rest. Yet, the river remained older than all of them. It remembered storms that predated the town. It remembered the footsteps of those who walked its edges centuries earlier. It remembered the presence of creatures that slipped through the marshes long before maps claimed the region belonged to humans. Murfreesboro lived in peace, without questioning how deeply the river shaped the land. Children ran under the trees without fear. Adults treated the river as a scenic backdrop rather than a reminder of something older. The community forgot the warnings that once passed through whispered stories. The river, however, never forgot anything. Riverside Park seemed harmless during the early evening hours of June 1973. The grass glowed with soft light from the fading sun. Fireflies rose and drifted in slow arcs. The river reflected a thin ribbon of moonlight as the sky darkened. A young couple parked their car under a cluster of trees, believing the night would remain quiet. They spoke softly while watching the slow movement of the water. The warmth of the day had settled into the gentle hush of twilight. The air tasted of moisture and the scent of clover. Everything felt calm, so calm that neither of them noticed how quickly the surrounding silence shifted. A faint tremor moved through the undergrowth. Leaves trembled as an unseen weight brushed past them. The branches swayed without wind. The couple fell silent and listened. They sensed a presence that did not belong to the ordinary rhythms of the night. The sound continued, slow and purposeful, as though something measured its steps with intention. The shift in shadows at the tree line deepened. Something waited there, hidden and aware of the humans who sat unaware of what approached. The air thickened with a smell that did not drift from the river. It carried the scent of stagnant decay mixed with something far older than the land itself. The night no longer felt safe. The presence stepped forward, revealing a towering creature rising from the darkness between the trees. Its body was covered in thick, matted hair, soaked with mud. Clumps of river debris clung to its limbs and swayed as it moved. The creature's height exceeded any human figure the couple had ever seen. Its shoulders stretched wide, and its arms hung long and heavy at its sides. The creature paused and studied them with a stillness that chilled the air. The river behind it seemed to recoil. Even the insects fell silent. The couple felt the weight of its gaze, as though the creature evaluated them with an intelligence shaped by the river rather than the world of humans. Without warning, the creature lifted its head and released a scream. The sound was sharp and piercing. It echoed across the water and caused the surface to ripple as though the river itself responded to the cry. The scream resonated through the forest, filling every hollow and every shadow with a force that felt unnatural. The couple fled in terror. Their tires tore through mud and scattered debris. The creature watched them vanish, then retreated into the trees with movements that were impossibly smooth for something of its size. It returned to the place where the river concealed its secrets. The Murfreesboro Police Department received the report within minutes. Officers expected a frightened exaggeration rather than a genuine threat. However, duty required investigation, and they arrived at Riverside Park with flashlights, scanning the ground in wide arcs. The footprints were the first thing they noticed. Enormous impressions sank deep into the mud. Each print was far larger than any human foot and carried the shape of something neither human nor animal. The stride length exceeded anything a person could manage. The officers felt an involuntary chill as they followed the trail. Near the trees, they found thick, translucent slime clinging to the bark. The substance emitted a foul odor that matched the couple's account. The officers collected samples, unsure of what they had encountered. They followed the trail of footprints until the path reached the river's edge. The prints ended abruptly. The disturbed mud swirled into patterns that suggested something massive had stepped directly into the water and disappeared. No further tracks waited on the opposite bank. Whatever had emerged from the woods had returned to the river, leaving no clear path for pursuit. Once the officers confirmed the evidence, fear moved through Murfreesboro like a quiet storm. Families kept children indoors. Porch lights stayed lit later than usual. Conversations grew tense as people exchanged their own unsettling experiences. The river no longer felt like a familiar neighbor. It felt like a boundary that separated the known from something that had awakened. Livestock refused to approach the woods. Dogs growled at shadows and whined at night. Children reported seeing shapes moving near the baseball fields during dusk. Teenagers whispered about hearing a cry that echoed from deep within the trees. Strange patterns appeared in the morning fog. The riverbank looked disturbed at unpredictable intervals. Some residents believed the creature watched them from the tree line. Others refused to look in that direction at all. The river seemed to absorb their fear. Its surface remained smooth, but the silence carried a new heaviness. Murfreesboro sensed that it had been seen by something that did not consider itself part of humanity's world. Law enforcement organized search teams that combed through miles of forest. Officers walked in coordinated lines, speaking to one another in steady, controlled voices. Their flashlights struggled to penetrate the density of the woods. Shadows grew thick and uncooperative. Tracking dogs reacted strongly to the scent, clinging to the slime on the trees. They trembled and refused to advance. Handlers attempted to guide them forward, yet the animals resisted with fear that bordered on desperation. These were dogs, accustomed to tracking dangerous criminals, yet none had ever responded with such dread. Branches snapped under unseen weight. Mud bore the signs of heavy movement, yet the creature left no clear trail. Every search ended at the river. The water reflected their lights with a cold, glass-like sheen. The officers sensed the creature remained near, but the river concealed everything. The search deepened their fear rather than their understanding. When newspapers published images of the footprints, the story extended beyond Murfreesboro. Journalists toured the riverbanks and recorded interviews with frightened residents. Television crews broadcast segments that highlighted the physical evidence and the police reports. People across the state began discussing the creature, and speculation spread quickly. Tourists arrived with cameras, notebooks, and binoculars. They stood along the river at dusk, waiting for any sign of movement. The town grew crowded with curious visitors who underestimated the land they walked upon. They treated the river like a spectacle rather than a warning. Restaurants filled with strangers discussing theories about the creature's origin. Some believed it to be an undiscovered species. Others suggested it belonged to a legend older than the written record. The town buzzed with curiosity, but the river remained indifferent. The creature had retreated, and the land offered no further clues. As summer grew late, the sightings ceased. The screams fell away. The footprints no longer appeared in the mud. The forest regained its usual sounds, although some residents swore the quiet felt uneasy rather than peaceful. The river entered its steady rhythm once more. Its surface grew smooth again. Fog rolled across the water in pale ribbons. Families returned to their routines, although many chose to avoid the woods entirely. The creature had not been captured, explained, or understood. It had simply vanished. The river accepted it back into its depths with the same silence that had concealed it for generations. Murfreesboro moved forward, but the memory of the summer of 1973 remained. The land had revealed a truth that people could not easily forget. You have now followed a story that rose from the river's hidden depths. You have witnessed the way fear settles over a community when something older than memory steps out of the shadows. The people of Murfreesboro saw only one moment in the life of the creature. Yet that moment changed the way they looked at the world around them. The river still carries its secrets and continues to guard the presence that walked upon its banks. I cannot tell you when the creature will return, nor can I tell you how long the river will wait before revealing anything again. The land holds its silence with care. If you choose to acknowledge what you have witnessed, you may leave your mark below. The ledger will remember that you listened.